My name is Otto Klein. As the owner of several waste management companies, I am known as the Trash King. I was married to Janet Carson. She was a lawyer and kept her maiden name for her professional activities. Apparently, her whole life was tied to her profession, since she made no effort to introduce herself in society under anything other than her maiden name. My profession in waste management suited her while I paid for her expensive law school expenses. She decided to go to law school after working as a paralegal for several years and realizing that she was as smart as most of the lawyers she worked for. Even though I own several successful companies and make more money than most of the godlike lawyers she worked with, Janet began looking down on me as a second-class citizen soon after she took a job at the law firm. When, over the course of a few weeks, the evening jobs began to appear, the amount of sex decreased and the disrespect increased. I suspected that she was beginning an affair. Since gods don't mate with mere humans, I assumed she was dating one or more of her fellow lawyers. I quickly decided that I needed to obtain evidence that would withstand legal scrutiny. If I had simply divorced her, she would have received half of my business and a significant fortune. If I could get evidence of her infidelity with her other lawyer, I could probably sue her agency. The law firm would probably pay very little to avoid the embarrassment and possible loss of clients, so I could earn enough to offset what I would have to pay them in the divorce. My logic may have been flawed, but that is what it was like at the time. This is what I based my actions on. Janet's office hosts an annual Christmas party. Every year, Janet invites me, and every year I decline, until this year. She was shocked and immediately tried to come up with reasons why I could stay home. You won't have anyone to talk to there, just a bunch of lawyers showing off their watches. Do you really want to sit and listen to this all night? I don't care as long as I'm with you. That's what I said. As long as I can keep an eye on you and see if I can figure out who your lover is. That's what I was thinking. Almost every day before the party, Janet mentioned another excuse that I could give if I wanted to refuse. I didn't buy it. I told her I was looking forward to going to the party. Even as she prepared for the formal event, she tried one last time. I hate to see you having a bad time. Are you sure you want to go? Yes, darling. I knew her problem wasn't that my appearance embarrassed her. I was told that I was quite handsome, in good shape, and my suit was Armani. I wasn't a slob. I was just working with trash. She didn't like it when I said she was doing it too. We arrived at the party with a second wave of people who were trying to be fashionably late. Most of the tables were already occupied, but we soon found one next to the dance floor, where only one couple had settled down so far. We took our seats, and I offered to bring drinks for Janet and myself. My first confrontation of the evening occurred while I was standing in line for drinks. The man, who apparently was one of the firm's lawyers, said, "I don't think I've met you before." "Who did you come with?" I replied, "With my wife, Janet Carson Klein." "Janet? I didn't think she was still married." "Yes, we were happily married for 8 years, despite the fact that we have been married for more than 10 years. He looked stunned for a second and then started laughing at what he assumed was my joke. This proved to me that truth is often funnier than fiction. More than once I have heard the label "King of Trash" used in connection with my presence in the area. Their comment was usually followed by a sarcastic laugh. I wasn't really that upset. In previous years, I had correctly anticipated how these snobs would treat me. I was considered lower class, if not gutter scum. I watched as Janet interacted with various lawyers, paralegals, secretaries, and their beaux for the evening. At the table, she spoke politely to the others who were sitting with us during the meal. When the dancing started, I decided to give it a try. I asked my wife to dance. She looked like she could hardly stand being seen with me. I did not care. I tried to dominate the slow dances, but was soon interrupted several times. She then managed to accept several invitations from other lawyers to both fast and slow dances. I gave up and just leaned back in my chair to watch her even more closely. About an hour after the dancing began, a respectable middle-aged man approached our table. He only looked at Janet. Unlike most others, he didn't ask my permission. He claimed her more than he invited her to dance. Janet's face lit up when she saw him. She readily agreed and stood up without even looking at me for approval. I thought, perhaps we have a winner. I was completely focused on them, watching them slow dance. There was enough in her body language to confirm my suspicions, but nothing so revealing as to warrant a photo that would be damning. So, was my guess enough proof that they were lovers? No. Fortunately, I had another source of information. An unusual source of information. I never told Janet that the CIA recruited me after college. It turns out that I have a very accurate lip-reading skill. I had several successful covert missions and learned to lip-read a foreign Middle Eastern language. However, my stay at the CIA did not last long, as one of these notorious whistleblowers blew my cover along with everyone else in my department. I wasn't interested in desk work, so I left the CIA. I stood up and stood so that I could see what Janet was saying to her dance partner. Most of the time, I couldn't see his face from the front. Here's what I saw. Janet, have you booked a room for today? He, number 322, did you give it to me? Janet, yes. I just put it in his drink a few minutes ago. He, it won't take long, Janet. I can't believe you're planning on us making love in the same room where my husband sleeps. This is so indecent and dangerous. He, you like to pretend that it's not so. Janet, are you sure he won't wake up too early? He, not much. You're still Janet. Don't worry about me. If I promised you my ass, you'll get it. Oh, Stanley, I'm so ready. That was enough for me. I immediately threw the rest of the drink all over myself and the table. I excused myself and headed towards the toilets. I walked past the toilets and headed towards the exit. I was hoping that either I hadn't taken enough of the drug yet for it to work, or the dosage wasn't that strong. I was wrong on both counts. The beeping monitors, bright lights, and smells of alcohol were my return to consciousness. Apparently, I was in a car accident when I fell asleep at the wheel on my way home from a party. I looked around and saw a nurse. I was about to ask her a question when I saw Janet enter the room. I immediately sat down and shouted, "Get this bitch out of here!" Janet ran out of the room. When she left, I was still screaming. It was because of her that they almost killed me. I want to talk to a police officer immediately. The nurse tried to calm me down. The medical staff assumed that I was having some kind of psychotic episode. I calmed down and told them, "I will try to explain this in terms that you understand. I will sue you personally and the hospital as a whole if you don't call a police officer here in the next 15 minutes. I was drugged with illegal substances. Get a toxicology test for liquid Benadryl and other sleeping pills. I think my wife and her lover almost killed me. I exaggerated what I knew about the situation, but it worked. Within 15 minutes, the police officer took my statement that I had overheard my wife and her lover talking about drugging me and taking my body somewhere so they could have sex. I didn't mention that I heard by reading lips. I thought that the use of illegal substances and the attempted kidnapping should trigger some kind of action. I was told that after leaving the hospital, I needed to go to the police station to file a complaint under oath. I told them I would do it unless they kidnapped me or killed me when I left the hospital. The officer didn't seem particularly concerned about my safety. While I was waiting to be discharged, a nurse came in to tell me the results of the toxicology report. I was drugged and big time. In fact, judging by the amount of substances I had in my system, if I drank a full glass, it would most likely kill me. Hospital staff have already reported this to the police. This was the first time I heard the phrase "he attempted murder." Soon a policeman showed up at my door, and the second officer who questioned me was more serious in his questions. The next day, when I was discharged, I went home. A police car regularly drove past my house, but I was in no danger. Janet was not in our house. Only all her things were there. I learned that Janet had been arrested earlier at our home. She and her lover had come here in hopes of convincing me not to tell the law firm about their planned hotel date. This was the only crime they felt they had committed. However, she and Stanley were charged with attempted murder. I imagine her fainting upon hearing the accusation as the police handcuffed her. Both lawyers, as expected, refused to appear without the other lawyer. The district attorney wanted to try these cases separately. He thought that if Janet saw that she was going to be convicted, she would testify against Stanley Proust, her lover and junior partner of the firm. The DA was unsuccessful. The two cases were intertwined and will be tried together. Janet tried to talk to me before the trial. She left messages saying she was innocent of trying to kill me. I guess she didn't think cheating on me was a big deal because she didn't bother to apologize for it. I ignored the rest of her messages. I quickly withdrew all funds from our joint accounts and cut all other financial cords to which she was tied. Her father had to pay her lawyer until her lawyer finally forced me to give her half back. At their trial, the toxicology report on the substances in my body was the main evidence. There was a forensic chemist expert on poisoning, sleeping pills, and date rape drugs who told me the scientific name of the drug I was given and the danger I would be in if I drank the entire amount. I was the main witness. The accuracy of lip reading, especially my ability to read lips, was a major issue for the defense regarding my testimony. How could I be so sure of what I saw? Most lip readers perform at just above 50% accuracy. I had several CIA officers testify that my knowledge was above average. I even gave a demonstration in court. The defense attorney then tried to offer an alternative theory of what happened, saying that I had actually drugged myself to frame my wife and her lover for attempted murder. If I was found guilty, I would be confident that I would receive all the assets in the divorce, plus a good settlement for the lawsuit against the law firm. Truth be told, I wish I was capable of such cunning. The judge was not impressed when I expressed in open court how stupid I thought the defense attorney's claim was. When it was the defense's turn, neither Janet nor Stanley testified. They asked another forensic chemist to testify that the controlled substance most likely would not have killed me. They asked a sign language expert to testify to the general inaccuracy of lip reading. I liked it when my lawyer asked him if some lip readers were more accurate than others. He said, "Of course." He was then asked if he had ever seen me to determine how accurate I was. He had to admit that he didn't. The only other witness was a police officer, Sergeant Haskins, who interviewed people sitting at our table at the party. He testified that no one at the table reported seeing my wife put anything in my drink. The defense insisted. Defense conclusion: no one saw Stanley give Janet any powder. No one saw Janet put anything in my drink. There was no evidence that I didn't do it myself. Once the police officer finished testifying, the elderly lady in the gallery continued to try to get the district attorney's attention. This was causing disruption, so the DA sent an assistant to see what she was so upset about. The assistant hurried back and said, "Announce a break." The DA asked for and was given a 15-minute break as the DA returned to speak with the lady. I happened to glance at Janet, and she seemed horrified to see this woman. She immediately began a tense conversation with her lawyer. The district attorney returned from recess and demanded that the rebuttal witness be allowed to testify. He was asked whose testimony was being refuted. Police Officer Haskins. Janet pushed her lawyer to speak. "Your Honor, I request another adjournment during which I will submit an amendment to my client's statement. Stanley and his lawyer are crazy." The word bitch was used several times. At the conference, Janet and her lawyer stated that she would accept a guilty plea and a prison sentence of 3 to 5 years in exchange for testifying against Stanley. The district attorney agreed. The old lady told the DA that the cop asked her if she saw Janet put the knockdown powder in my drink. He didn't ask if Janet put anything in my drink, so she said no. He didn't ask her any more questions. The lady said she saw Janet putting something in my drink. Janet told her it was a medicine that would relieve the hangover I supposedly always get when I drink too much. She said no to the idea that they were knockout drugs because she thought they were a hangover cure. It took several more months for Janet to plead guilty and for the verdict to be announced. Stanley obtained a new trial in which Janet acted as the main witness. She described in detail how Stanley stalked her and how their affair began. She swore that she only wanted to cuckold me, and that Stanley identified the prohibited substance and its quantity. Stanley countered that he had only done what Janet had asked him to do, and that she had deliberately given me too much of the illicit substance, knowing the likely fatal consequences. So Stanley's lawyer came up with a new theory. Janet seduced him and planned all along to frame Stanley and kill me. In this way, she would get rid of her husband, who would leave a good inheritance and get rid of her lover, whose position as a junior partner would most likely pass to her. My car accident ruined her plan. Stanley began to cry at the thought of possibly hurting another person. The bottom line is that the jury believed Janet more than Stanley. He was found guilty and sentenced to 15 years in prison. I was allowed to testify at his sentencing hearing. I said with tears in my eyes, "I shouldn't have been here today. I am to be buried in a grave in Riverside Cemetery. Instead of sitting in that easy chair, my wife's lover should have been standing at my grave and helping my wife celebrate their successful disposal of the scavenger. She was going to inherit a lot of money. She had to spend my money with her lover and fellow murderer. Don't be fooled. Neither of them are upset that I almost died. They're upset that I didn't die, and they got caught. It was my special talent for reading lips that saved my life. I had already drunk about a quarter of the drink that my wife had prepared with the medicine she had received from her lover when I found out that something had been mixed into it. The amount I actually drank was enough to make me pass out and crash my car into some bushes. If I had crashed into the nearest tree, I probably would have been dead. Tests for illegal substances in my system showed that, if I had drunk the entire drink, I would have died while my wife and her lover were having sex in the same room in which I was dying. My wife and her lover say they only intended to drug me and cuckold me. They both say she mistakenly gave me what should have been a lethal dose. Even if it were true, could they just say, "Oops," and get slapped? I don't think so, but I'm not sure my opinion should matter. You see, I'm supposed to be dead. As I said, Stanley scored 15 points, and Janet scored 5. Janet shouted to me that she was very sorry as she was led out of the courtroom after Stanley's verdict was announced. I replied, "Read your lips. I don't care." The divorce was easy because Janet was in prison. She still didn't dispute anything. I think she was actually ashamed of what she had done and what almost happened to me. I ended up, unintentionally, getting what the defense attorney said I intended to get. All assets from my marriage and, after significant negotiations with the law firm and Stanley, a settlement of the lawsuit. I was already rich. I became even richer. Since I'm a waste recycler, you might say I'm filthy rich. I was amazed at how many women, in the months following the trial, wanted to audition for the now vacant position of trash queen. Not surprisingly, none of the applicants were female lawyers. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.